is the Promising Practices for Health Equity podcast, brought to you by the Interdisciplinary Research Leaders Program, a national leadership program of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation.
Hello, and welcome back to Promising Practices for Health Equity, the podcast created by the Interdisciplinary Research Leaders Program, affectionately known as IRL. I am your host, Krystal Lee, and my co-host today is J. Robin Moon, Associate Director of Research, Evaluation, and Dissemination for IRL. Hey, Robin.
Hi, Krystal.
This season, Robin, as you know, of Promising Practices, we are exploring the experiences, stories, and lessons of our IRL fellows and alumni. And today, I am so pleased to have our Cohort 2 alum, Dr. Dawn X. Henderson, with us. Welcome, Dawn.
Hey, so excited to be here.
We're so glad to have you here with us today, Dawn. Before we ask you to tell us about yourself and your work, we invite you to engage with us in one of our signature IRL promising practices, that is checking in with each other. One of our core beliefs is that nurturing personal relationships is key to building communities that collaborate effectively in the work towards health equity. So at our meetings, we do a quick check-in with everybody to help us continuously build connections in our beloved community. So we're gonna do the same here. And today's check-in question is, if you could be anywhere in the world broadly defined, right now, where would you be? I'm going to start. I have already told Krystal and some others I've had some unexpected work trip cancellations to different parts of the world this summer. The trips that I really look forward to. But then, being here in New York City when weather is actually rarely amazing, and I get to do my daily routine, have my morning time, and it's just been so great to the point I don't even want to travel anymore. So I really love being at home and ground myself. And right now, today, I would like to be nowhere other than my home.
Oh,
And I'm gonna toss it to Krystal.
Yeah, I think I would choose home as well. I have been developing my back garden. I started out trying to grow things that we could eat, food, but I have this year, because of some challenges, weather and so on, and just things not going as expected, I pivoted to flowers. And I am really, really enjoying the bursts of marigolds that I have in my backyard. And I also have some tomatoes and I have my asparagus.
He's got a colony, a
Yeah,
whole
they're
colony.
still coming up. There's
that's
there's
good.
almost 30 of them now. It's so
Yes.
beautiful. And my office over my window overlooks the garden. And I'm just, it's a sunny, beautiful, windy day outside. I would just love to be sitting outside. And that's where I'm going when I'm done with this conversation, to just go sit outside and enjoy and do something to move me towards my hope for next year is that I'll have plants that welcome monarch butterflies. So like milkweed and so on, lots of bright, beautiful flowers. My next door neighbor who grew up in this neighborhood, he said that when he was young, there would be thousands of monarch butterflies when he was young. But, because of all kinds of different changes and so on, he just doesn't see them anymore. And I want to try to bring them back. So that's my goal for my garden. And I'm just going to go sit out there and enjoy that. I'll toss it to you, Dawn. Where would you like to be?
Okay, so I heard world, so I'm going to lean into all that I am and all that those before me were. And so, in truth, I want to be outside of the universe. I want to be in the celestial bodies. I want to see the birth of a star. I want to watch Earth from afar. I really do. And I am not practicing this. I want to see the planets. I want to see the sun. I want to see what the world looks like from a more macro place, because I think sometimes we can get caught up in our individual worlds. And sometimes I would love to like sit back and watch and understand how we are connected to the broader universe. And oftentimes I think looking out at the night sky, I do a lot of wondering, just wondering what's out there. And so I would like to sit and be there and understand what's out there while I'm also loving what's out there. So that's my place to destination. If anybody's building a spaceship, let me be the first passenger. I'm on it.
She
Awesome.
created a poem out of this check-in question. Of
I
course,
love
you
that.
went outside the universe.
Of course. I love it. One of my favorite things about Dawn. So, Dawn, if you wouldn't mind, just tell us and our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yes. So I am daughter of Jacqueline Louise Ward, James Willie Henderson. I'm a middle child, youngest to Badia Henderson, oldest to Darul Islam Henderson. I'm a daughter who talked to trees as a child, believed that the sky and the clouds could talk back. I oftentimes would go hug a tree and say, God, do you love me? Like side conversations. I was often quiet. I'm a proud mother of twins, Atija and Tajai, a proud mother of a 15-year-old that I call Day. I'm a reflection of those who had to be enslaved, right? Those who were indigenous to this land. I am a representation of those who kind of stood on the banks of Honduras, on the banks of Jamaica, on the banks of South Carolina and Georgia. I am a representation of those who had to travel and migrate from the South to the North, to the East and the West. I find myself now back in the South in a place called North Carolina. I'm a lover. I'm a lover of myself. I'm a lover of community. I'm a lover of Black people. I'm a lover of Black Indigenous people. I'm a soul writer. I've been writing ever since I was 4. Sometimes writing in journals, and I've learned to open up my journals and open it up to the world, right? I'm a community cultivator. I like to say I've been cultivating community for a long, long time, starting out as a middle school science teacher, and found myself drifting into the field of community psychology. So I'm all in everything, a representation of many women, of many Black women whose bodies have had to silence themselves from the suffering they've had to experience, but at the same time dreaming and having big dreams for me to be here. So I am all those things, and I'm just happy to be representing all those people.
Thank you so much. Beautiful. Please tell us the story of how you came to health equity work and what health equity looks like to you.
Ooh, okay. This is one of those questions. I was like, pondering for me. So I'm going to say there are many stories, and I know I cannot adequately bring in all of them, right? But I want to acknowledge that I came to an orientation towards justice and an orientation towards healing justice because of my DNA, right? My DNA holds memories of Black Indigenous women, women who've had to suffer, as I said, who have had to carry the burden of being a woman in this country, the women who have had to die too soon, the women who have had to die from heart failure, the women who have had to die from cancer, the women who have had to die from the womb disease because nobody knew what it was called back then. You know,
Yeah.
I was called into this work because of my father and my father's father. My father had Alzheimer's, and we had to navigate a medical system that was quite difficult. Did not believe in his inability to communicate verbally, and only sometimes the look in his eyes would tell you his pain. And yet, folks were not responsive, right?
Yeah.
I came into this work because I've had to witness violence, gun violence, drug addiction, and all of those things. And I like to say that I had a body who moved through the system we call the public education system in the US and understanding the trauma of that. And so by moving through that work, there is no doubt that there is no doubt what moves through my blood, right? And so because of that, it has to inspire me and compel me to address the very systems that have led to that in order to change them, in order to change them. So I believe health equity really looks like all of us, all people thriving. I believe it's in the possibility that we all have access to the resources, to the care, and I say a system of care that truly values our dignity and our humanity. I believe it's a place where we all get to exist physically in all the ways we are, psychologically, spiritually. You know what I'm saying? I believe it's a place of promise. I believe that it is a place of possibility, as Dr. Sean Gimbright talks about. And I believe that it is possible, even though sometimes and quite often we can think that it is not.
Thank you. Drilling down a little more specifically and your, to your personal work now, the title of your IRL project when you were a fellow was Model for Violence Prevention and Health Promotion. Can you tell us a little bit about the project itself and then about the community where your research work was based in?
Yes, so I am cohort 2. We were Guilford County, North Carolina, which is probably considered the Piedmont area of North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And so our particular work was looking at a model that we called structured dialogue. It's actually something that was primarily facilitated by Dr. Brian Sims. And we wanted to look at the ways that structured dialogue actually shifts and changes the relationships that happen between home and school. Our theory of change was if we are changing how teachers and parents, right, how families and educators talk to each other, communicate with each other, create a shared vision for what an ideal school was, that they're changing their relationship, right? So teachers change the relationship with parents. When teachers change the relationship with parents, they change the relationship with themselves. They
Mm-hmm.
change the relationship with young people. And so we believe that by modeling, by using adults to model different ways to engage and relate to each other, that ultimately we're changing how young people relate, right? Because adults are often the models in the classroom and the models in the home. So yeah, that was our project, and it was quite enlightening. We were right at the cusp of COVID. So we had gone into our second year when COVID hit, right? Like a lot of people. But I think the most beautiful thing that I want to reflect on was in the beginning of the project, before we even started to introduce them to structured dialogue, was we were able to engage Black families in telling us a dream. What's your dream? Tell us the dream. What do you dream of for your children? What are the schools you dream about, right? What is an ideal school that you can dream? And I think that's the most powerful piece, right? By sitting with people who have been the most marginalized in the world to dream together. And to not only dream together, but when we use those dreams to bring school administrators and teachers in that and to hear that and say, okay, and how do we get there? And how do we get there? We use the structured dialogue model, right, to change our relationships for us to get there.
So you worked with the school systems, and what's the age group of young people when you say them?
Yes, yes, yes. So we actually worked not with a public school system. We worked with a charter
Charter
school.
school.
And these were young people. The children were between kindergarten and I believe at the time the school went up to fifth grade. Fifth
Okay.
grade.
And you
Mhm.
sat with the students and the families for the
We would
structured
sit,
dialogue?
yeah, it was a family affair often. So, a lot of times meeting in the evening, feeding the parents. We would have childcare for the parents, but sometimes the children were there. And
Okay.
we were engaged in a practice of using dialogue, right? Generating dialogue around ideal visions for a school, generating dialogue around what does it mean to quote unquote reduce suspension here, right? To minimize the prevalence of violence. But how do we do that? By working on the relationships that were happening between the adults.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What do you see, Dawn, as the promising practices that were involved in your work and maybe emerged from the work or were actually a part of the work that you were doing in
Yeah.
this project?
Yeah. So I think this is a really great question. And at first I was like, oh, it was the relationships, but I think I alluded to this before. I believe the most promising practice, and it's actually something that catapulted my own my own career actually from 2019 was facilitating space and curating space for Black
Mm.
families to dream and to dream of ideal conditions for their children to thrive in schools. And the second part of that practice that emerged was our ability to kind of leverage, the weight that we had, the RWJF project with school administrators and teachers, right? So again, we articulated the dream and we brought it to them and said, okay, how do we get there, right? And to see school administrators and teachers get on board with that dream. And so for me, this is like folks who do human-centered design, they talk about designing from the edges, right? When you design something from the edges, and we always think about those who are the most marginalized, you know what I mean? And I think about particularly youth violence and in schools. We know that those are Black bodied folks, right? We know quite often those are Black parents, Black caregivers who are excluded oftentimes or find themselves engaging in hostile school environments. So when you ask them to step outside the margins and become centered in that,
Mm.
right? The edge is shifted. And
Right.
I think that was the most powerful piece of the work, because we saw that when they are creating the vision and they say, we want to invite you into our vision, it began to shift the relationship that was happening between the school administrators, the educators, and the parents.
So facilitating the folks to move from the margins to the center. That's the
Yes,
promising practice.
yes,
Right.
yes,
Amazing.
yes, yes,
Beautiful.
yes,
That is truly a beautiful description of a different way of being, right?
yes,
As we are
yes.
trying to do work to help people live better lives.
That's right.
And it seems to me like it should be obvious that you engage folks in, things that are intended to impact them positively. But sometimes many times it doesn't end up being that way.
Yeah.
Because they might not have seen it before.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the reimagining part, and that's the beginning of the transformation.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes.
Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing that, Dawn. It really is a shift for for me in terms of seeing how this work can be done. So
Yes.
you talked about like sharing the vision, sharing the dream with the IRL program and having the space to do some of this work. Can you tell us a little about how would you describe your experience with IRL?
Yeah. So I think my experience with IRL was kind of like empowering on one side and stagnant on the other.
Mhm.
So I think that being a part of the IRL experience and being caught into the IRL experience, I think that they asked the teams to come up with bold ideas, right? Bold ideas. So structured dialogue method, that's a bold
Yeah, I would
you know what
say
I
so.
mean? To try to address youth violence and to do it by not targeting young people, right? So I want to like note that, right? To say that we understand that there's relationships, right, that have to shift if we're talking about addressing this symptom or
Mm.
whatever. I think that it was stagnant in at the time because I think we did what I was supposed to do, right? Come in, learn about big policy, small policy. And I'm saying this in kind of a sarcastic way, right?
You're
To
allowed. You're
right,
allowed.
to come in and talk about dissemination, right? Like, the beautiful thing about, yes, you guys should create a dissemination plan. And we got to write a blog and we created an issue brief. And I would say all the things that kept me stuck and still.
Mm.
The things that were empowering that I think probably, I'm not sure the story can be captured in a very kind of
Mhm.
methodological way in terms of how we're thinking about it, was the relationships that was offered to me. And so one relationship was our team were granted coaches, mentors. And one of my mentors was a white Jewish man during that time. And I'm going to get emotional, and I'm okay with that. Because there were times he would say, let's get on a call. And he was like, why are you so quiet? I'm noticing the man is dominating the conversation. I'm noticing there are things that is being said, and I know that that's your practice. That's your community psychologist. He would say, and after that, after IRL, he stayed in my life. He chose to stay in my life as a mentor. I am not paying him. He has been a champion of mine. 2 years ago, I received an award through my division in APA, which was award for a lifetime contribution to community
APA.
psychology. Yeah,
APA
American
is.
Psychological Association.
Thank
Right?
you.
And I received, the prestigious Contributions to Community Psych Award, right? And that was really his advocacy, his nomination. I will have a piece in the American Journal of Community Psychology coming out that is a first-person narrative around my own healing and love that I had to find in research. So he has been an advocate, a champion, right? And I just want to say that IRL was the vehicle for that. And that's something you can't necessarily quantify or qualify.
Mhm.
Another important relationship was Miss Regina Jackson, who was in Cohort 2. And we reconnected right when I had transitioned from Duke University and I started a nonprofit. I was in a leadership position in a nonprofit, locally rooted community organization. And she was my executive coach. And if anybody knows anything about Regina Jackson, she is straight to the point, straight shooter. She's a Black woman who doesn't play. And she would have to give it to me real at times. We met monthly, and she was actually here with me when my father passed last year and stepped out of coaching role and stepped in as Black woman's sister.
Mm.
Whew. That's what I'm saying. You can't quantify these things. I think that there were experiences, and something that was a really beautiful experience was, I think it was going into our second year, and it was a team, may have been Cohort 3 from Team Hawaii. And they decided to bring in, I think it was different herbs and oils and what they would consider to be more indigenous Hawaiian practices into a facilitated session. They had us smelling and we were singing and we were moving. And I said, this is research, right? This is what it has to be and needs to look like. And I think all of those things were so impactful, right? So transformative to me. And so I think, we're guided into spaces for a reason. And those are the things that I think continue to inspire me because one, I want to pay it forward. How Dr. Tom Wolfe, that's his name, has paid it forward to me. So I'm committed to mentoring and doing pro bono coaching to Black women who are early career folks, you know what I mean? Because I believe that that's what was given to me. I'm about disrupting how research looks in the world. And I believe in kind of this concept of a healing centered lens of research. And so again, and I lean into the edges. I move back. I engage in the principle of moving back and listening to folks who may not have a PhD, a master's degree, a bachelor's degree, even I was saying associate's degree. I have found that it's often young people and those folks who are breathing, living, eating, digesting the air. And that's where I learned from the most.
That's right. I think you're giving examples of ways to defy what the current structure in society defines as leadership
Yes.
development and
Yes.
what is evidence-based. So Tom, I will repeat the names: Tom Wolfe, Regina Jackson, another fellow from Cohort 2, And Team
Yes.
Hawaii from Cohort 3 is actually going to be speaking to us in the later episodes,
Oh,
just so you know.
yes. So please tell them whether they remember me at their session.
Of
Dr.
course
Dawn
they
Henderson.
would. Okay. Well, you already alluded to what your future started to look like because the cohort 2 was graduated 2020. Is that right? Okay, so
Yes.
you've had 5 years.
No, it's 2020. Was it 20? I thought it was 2021.
Is that 2021? I think 2020.
Was it 2020? Okay.
2020, 2017 and 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So
You're
you've
right.
had 5 years of what the post IRL future has been. So let me ask you this. What have been your next steps? I think you already alluded that you are a recovering academic now.
Yes.
How do you see the lessons you've learned from IRL, being applied in the work towards health equity for all since your graduation of 2020?
Oh, yeah. So I just want to say I do keep my pinky toe in the academic realm, just because I'm trying to change how teaching happens actually on another level. So, I still try to do adjunct if I can
Mm.
to shift what that looks like in higher education as much as I can, given our climate. So much. I really want to reflect on what I alluded to, right? Like believing in the edges, right? As somebody say, believe in Black women first. You know what I mean? Believe in Black families, believe in Black Indigenous people, right? Like don't question or interrogate. No. And so I think because of that, I transitioned into the nonprofit realm. And I like to say that I really came into an organization that was trying to engage in more liberatory practices. And, I was a part of that, right? It was a whole new functional area, quote unquote, division that was being created that we call community driven research. You know what I mean? And I created a whole strategy on doing that by sitting alongside and walking alongside Black parents. And specifically, these were Black moms, you know what I mean? So you can think about all the lives that they're holding or whatever. And I think that I helped that nonprofit get over $4 million, you know what I mean, through our strategy around doing community driven research, right? But I want to say that it was in that work that I realized my spirit, my soul was being kind of torn. You know what I mean? It was kind of being disrupted, feeling like it was at a place of demarcation, you know what I mean? Split
Mhm.
in the middle. And I had to, like, again, I lost my father last year and I had to return to a conversation I had with myself a long time ago.
Mm.
What is my destiny? What am I supposed to be doing? And so I left, right? And I started We Claim Research. And so We Claim Research is all about, Robin, everything that I alluded to before, Krystal. It is about disrupting how we think research can happen. You know what I mean? I'm actually about to post a blog on Sunday about what does it really mean to listen and witness someone. You know what I mean? We don't talk about that when we're designing protocols and focus groups, but it's like, how do we really listen someone's existence into being, right? What
Mhm.
does it mean to bear witness to someone's story? You know what I mean? When we're listening, when we're gathering stories versus data, you know what I mean? Let's make them very
Yeah.
human.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And what is our responsibility? I feel like that's another thing we don't talk a lot about. It's like, what is our responsibility outside of IRB when we're collecting these stories? Where do these stories exist and how are they accessible to the community who said, I'm gonna give you consent, right? And
That
offer them
is
to them.
that is sovereignty. Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
What does it mean for us to actually sit down and say, how should I translate this? Maybe I don't need to write a freaking peer article. What does it mean if it is a piece of art, if it's dance, if it's theater, if it's something else, if it's bringing the concept of seeds and the braids back. You know what I mean? And what does that mean in order for that community to use that, to leverage that knowledge in order to maintain their ability to continue to heal, their ability to continue to love, their ability to continue to dream. And I would say also, short plug, it's coming out soon. It landed me in a place where I am publishing my book, a guide, right? And the book is called That We Get to Love. We get to love, heal, and dream. It's about building community with ourselves and others. As a community psychologist, my training has often been outside, think of community outside. And I like to say we have to work on community inside too, because what we do to this is what we do to that, right? So how are we shifting that out? And so beginning to again acknowledge the ways that I've sat down with everyday community members as co-authors of their stories, as translators of that. And that's the kind of work I want to continue to do, because I do believe in, again, the existence of parallel worlds. And while we know that the conditions that we're in right now can be quite daunting, they can make us believe that we are powerless. We can feel helpless, right? And we can feel hopeless. I believe there's the other world, right? There's the powerful, right? There's the hopeful, right? I know we can, all of those things. And so that's the kind of work I want to continue to lean into, and what I feel really, again, when I'm reflecting on my journey in IRL. The last thing I do want to shout out, and this is John Swabish from the Urban Institute.
Yes.
I don't think, I have to acknowledge John and the beauty that he shifted. So I do want to acknowledge that he was really helping us to think through data in a different way, in a more visual way. But then I think when I think about my DNA, it was like, oh, but how can we even think of it beyond graphs and bars? You know what I mean? So again, what does it look like to become a piece of theater? You know what I mean? Just different
Yeah,
kinds
that's
of
right.
work.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I do want to acknowledge, I think, again, that was a beautiful connection and a beautiful experience that kind of put a little spark within my own mind to even challenge myself even further.
You've been busy since in the last 5 years. So your reclaim research, and congratulations on your publication and all the information, including Jonathan Schwabish at Urban Institute, we'll share with our listeners in the show notes. Thank you.
Please. Yes.
Yeah, thanks, Dawn, for that struck me as such a beautiful reflection on your experience. And I think you have raised some questions that others who are engaging in community engaged research and wanting to do more of this can think through in order to do right by the communities and do right by the work and by the people and even by themselves as individuals. And so I'm grateful for the reflection that you've shared that will hopefully get us to this world, this new world of possibilities and happiness and hopefulness that is so antithetical to some of what we're dealing with at this time. So thank you for sharing that. I want to, share about one of our core beliefs in this podcast team, which is, it's summed up in the words of Octavia Butler, who shared that, all that you touch, you change, and all that you change changes you. Will you please tell us how IRL, or beloved community, has changed you, and how do you think that you have changed either the program or your community?
Yes. So I think the community, as I reflected on the experiences, the relationships that were developed, I don't necessarily think that it changed me. I believe that it was an invitation back to a version of me that existed before I was indoctrinated inside of a historically white institution and indoctrinated in public education. And it was probably done at the age of about 4 or 5, right? The Dawn who was highly creative. My mom thought I was going to be an architect at the age of 4 by some drawing I drew to her of some multi-storied building. She sung a lot. She danced freely. She
Mm.
was fearless. She was okay. Like I said, talking to grass, talking to the trees, and knowing that the earth talks back to her.
Mm.
She knew that. She ran through the water uninhibited. She was not afraid to step outside, to be different, to be weird, to not necessarily always have people who liked her. And I think that the relationships that I developed
Mm.
helped me reconnect with her. The degree to which I changed IRL, I think you may have to do a follow-up interview, ask people that one. But I do believe in my existence and my existence as a Black-bodied being in the world, as a woman-bodied being in the world. Wherever I stand, it's a radical act of resistance, right? Because we know that there have been systems designed to annihilate us, to murder us early. And when I'm able to stand anywhere, I'm transforming. I'm transforming that space. And so I wholeheartedly believe just in my existence, I am doing that. Mhm.
I so hear you. My birthday is coming up, so I have been I set a daily intention, and starting today until the birthday for a whole week, it's going to be I will celebrate my life today.
Yes,
And I am hearing you and feeling you through all my
yes,
body right now. Yeah.
yes, yes, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't use birthdays anymore. I tell people Earth Strongs, you know what I mean? The birthday is the day we were born, but every year is our Earth Strong. Celebrate it as the 365.25 as much as you can. Yes.
Celebrating our bodies, our lives, our existence is the act of radical act. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Of
I hear you.
resistance and love. Yeah.
Okay, finally, we've come to the final question for you, Don. Working towards equity and against systems of oppression that we've talked about so far can take its toll every day.
Yes.
So we ask this question to all our guests. Can you share with our listeners how you engage in self-care as you do this difficult work?
Yes. So I literally just got a phone call from my primary care physician, was like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to increase your exercise to about 50 minutes, 5 times a week. I was like, I'm getting older. But anyway, I will say again, over the past year, I have been dedicated to ancestral veneration. I have created my own altar that acknowledges those who have passed
Mm.
before me. Every morning I rise, I say my prayer, I give my meditations in the AM, you know what I mean? And I think that that has helped me to kind of reroute
Mhm.
myself. I do belly dancing on Sundays. Yeah.
What? Love it.
I literally was dancing this morning when I have no reason to. I love engaging in small ways to play. Actually, I organize what I call play activities here like every quarter. So I did a Black Mama's kickball, Black Mama's skate. We did Black Mama's nap. We did Black Mama's camp out. We're gonna do Black Mamas make Kung Fu flicks. You can ask me about that later. We all grew up in the 80s when we were watching Sunday morning Kung Fu flicks, and we were like, we should do that. We should make a movie of us just being silly and doing that. So that's just something, again, inviting play back into my life or whatever. I read romance novels. I struggle through nonfiction, but I've committed myself to read some good nonfiction from the beginning to the end and not just, certain chapters or whatever. I've been cooking more, eating out less, and just practicing loving on me, loving on we. Beautiful being right here.
Dr. Dawn X. Henderson, thank you so much for sharing your stories with us today. Your playful energy and spirit are infectious, and we really deeply appreciate your insights.
Thank you so much. And so happy and precious, precious energy all around us, y'all. Be blessed.
Thank you so much, Dawn. Thank you. And thank you to our listeners. We would love to hear from you. What promising practices are you using in your work to achieve health equity? Find us on the Interdisciplinary Research Leaders LinkedIn page where you can share your thoughts and leave questions for the team. And don't forget to subscribe to Promising Practices for Health Equity so you never miss an episode. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for joining us on this journey where every step we take together brings us closer to a healthier, more just world. Until next time.
Promising Practices for Health Equity is produced by the Interdisciplinary Research Leaders Program, a national leadership program of the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. A special thanks to our guests, our production team at Studio Americana, and to you, our listeners, for being a part of this important conversation.